This October marks Dyslexia Awareness Month, highlighting the often overlooked experiences of the 1 in 10 Australians navigating this hidden disability that affects reading, writing and processing. Joining me today in studio is Dr. Shae Wissell from Rethink Dyslexia. It's good to have you with us. What makes this a hidden disability? Take us through what you're seeing.
Sure, thank you so much for having me today. So dyslexia, as you said, affects 1 in 10 Australians, but really we can't see the impact of what's happening for people who have dyslexia, even though being able to read and write is a human right, part of the Human Rights Act.
Yeah. And
it's really that we can't see what's happening underneath for people, even though sometimes we might see spelling mistakes or someone reading slowly or stumbling over their words. Apart from that, you can't see what's happening for them inside and the impact it can have on them.
Yeah, which of course can be quite stressful, I imagine. What has adult dyslexia, why has it been so under-researched, if you will? Take us through a bit about why we haven't looked at it maybe more closely until now.
I really don't know. It's a really good question. Overseas, we're seeing a lot more research happening for adulthood dyslexia, and I feel like in Australia we've really just focused on children and really trying to understand the struggles that children have and what the right interventions are. And so for the work we do, we only work with young people and adults because we know that's a huge gap. And until my research, nothing has really been done in Australia looking at the impact of dyslexia in adulthood. And we want to know why that's been happening.
Yeah. Well, what did your research show? Tell us a bit about that.
So our research showed that it's really hard for people with dyslexia. I have dyslexia and dysgraphia, 2 types of learning difficulties or disabilities. And for me, it was really hard going through school, and my mum supported me a lot, which is why it was hidden for me. Yeah. And no one picked it up until I was 27 in adulthood. And so our research really looked into what's happening for other adults and whether what had happened to me was bad experiences or whether this was happening for others. And we're seeing a significant mental health challenges, being able to retain a job. So we're seeing a lot of people get educated, but then they're underemployed, and we want to see them employed at the right level. We see a lot of people performance manage because of their challenges in the workplace. And so the research is really starting to highlight those challenges and what we can do to help people with dyslexia.
And again, if it's a hidden disability and people aren't talking about it or having this dialogue or doing the research, then how are we going to fix it? So I'm glad you brought it to the table. How does your book, though, help shift the conversation around dyslexia in the workplace? Tell us a bit about it.
So my book was 7 years in the making. So it took me 7 years to do my doctorate, and the whole time I'd planned to turn my doctorate into a book. And so over the year after I'd completed it, I then went and turned it into a book. So it's really about my lived experience, but also bringing that research in, which again is a really unique part of the work that we do because everything revolves around lived experience and then is underpinned by the research.
Yeah, nice. So why is dyslexia still missing from those broader neurodiversity discussions that we are having more and more of? But you're right, it doesn't seem to be popping up nearly as much as some of the other things that are out there.
No, I mean, dyslexia makes up the largest cohort of all the neurodivergent conditions at the moment. So we make up 50%, so that's a huge percentage of the neurodivergent population. And yet we're not having these conversations, and I feel like maybe we're fragmented in Australia and there hasn't been enough adult voices until now really starting to talk about the impact that it has on them. There's a lot of stigma and shame still attached to having dyslexia, and so I think for adults to be able to talk about the fact that they can't do what seems simple to everyone else, reading and writing, brings a lot of hesitation and shame. And so what we're trying to do is reduce that so we can have these conversations and government can start listening to what we're talking about.
Okay, so let's talk about what kind of change you'd like to see across schools and workplaces. What sort of things do you think might be good to put into place?
I think first is the awareness piece. We've been working in this space for 8 years and we're just starting to see a shift now. And then I think we really need a lot of training in schools, particularly secondary schools, and then into the workplace. There's a real lack of understanding around dyslexia as a disability, and it is recognised as a disability. And workplaces really need to start looking at how they can support, and that comes with awareness raising, training, and then I think government looking at dyslexia as part of that neurodivergent cohort, and that we're seeing a lot happen for autism and ADHD now, and dyslexia really needs to start to come to the forefront because we co-occur with all those difficulties anyway. So you can't treat ADHD without looking at the dyslexia. And so for us, the government really needs to start looking at us as a group to start with, and then kind of looking at the different challenges we have, but also the amazing strengths we can bring.
100%. Well, speaking of, where can people get their hands on the book, perhaps connect with you, perhaps find out a little bit more about this and maybe get involved?
Sure. At rethinkdyslexia.com.au is the best place to go, and you can find our book at KMD. Make sure I've got my right publisher, KMD Books as well, and it's online everywhere and starting to go through to all major stores, and hopefully at the end of next week we go out through Audible as well.
Amazing. Dr. Shae Wissell, thank you so much for joining me on the program today and bringing this to our attention and helping us raise awareness for this.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.